From HYPEBEAST Radio, I'm Jeff Staple, and this is The Business of Hype, a show about creative entrepreneurs, brand builders, innovators, and the realities behind the dreams they've built. It may be cliche to say, but this week's guest of The Business of Hype is the epitome of when you keep your eyes on the prize. Footwear design has always been his passion, and it's taken him through some amazing experiences. Jobs that were seemingly just for the check, but ended up becoming much more. Unexpected detours, life-changing jobs, and career-defining moments that reshaped the brand and maybe even a culture. He's a rising designer, and you might know him or his work as Senior Director of Sneakers and Men's Footwear at Versace. Or maybe you first heard about him from his time at Yeezy. But in a larger sense, he's actually helping further bridge the gap between luxury and street. He's made many headlines through his work and continues to help open doors through his role. Let's get ready to hear the story of the very talented Salehe Bembury. So dope. We're in a really interesting stage in culture right now where like almost anybody could do anything, and like so it's sort of limitless what's possible right now. And brands sort of tapping into individuals becoming brands of their own. We're at like a really interesting time where anything is possible. And I think I've been following your career for a while now, and just seeing you coming up, you're like exemplary of that momentum that's happening. So before we get too deep, first of all, introduce yourself. Who do we have in the studio today?
My name is Salehe Bembury. I am the Senior Director of Men's Footwear and Sneakers at Versace.
Welcome.
And I am very happy to be here.
Yeah, man. This is going to be good. I think a lot of people have been looking up to your career and seeing what you're doing. And I think a lot of young people have a lot of questions on someone like yourself can get to a high fashion house, and like there's also a lot of mystery, I think, because there's a lot that like you can't say. So hopefully you can say it now.
I'll try to share what I can. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to pull it out of you. But yeah, you're at Versace now. Obviously, if you are even peripherally into shoes or sneaker culture at all, you've been seeing what Versace has been putting out, and it's been really revolutionary from a luxury brand standpoint, how it merges street culture, sneaker culture, and luxury world. And you're sort of like right at the intersection of that. And so like the work that you're doing out of Versace, I think is like exactly what's happening in the culture right now.
Thank you.
It's the perfect merging of all of that. You must be super proud to be able to put your stamp on it, because before at Versace, there's not many other people that get to put their stamp on something besides Donatella Versace herself. So you are sort of like, really putting your thumbprint on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that joins a creative team is bringing something unique to the table, and what I'm bringing to this opportunity is just my knowledge of sneakers and footwear, and a lifetime of being obsessed with the craft, and late nights on Nike Talk, and camping out around the corner at Supreme, and doing all those nerdy sneakerhead things. I come from that, so. Yeah. It's really in my blood, and it's been really exciting to bring it to this new space. I
would assume that not a lot of people at Versace headquarters has that same pedigree that you do.
No, I mean, I think they more so probably went to school for fashion, or at least have a fashion background, and I went to school for industrial design, and any fashion experience I have comes from just growing up in this neighborhood, Tribeca, Soho, and having a creative father. My dad was a photographer, so just really having a creative environment all around me. It was kind of this subconscious absorption that was happening all throughout my childhood.
Yeah. So you grew up in New York City?
Grew up in New York City. Grew up about maybe 15 blocks away from here on Duane Street in Tribeca. And lived there for 29 years, and then moved to California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what year were you born?
1986.
Okay. So you grew up in the mid 80s in downtown New York City.
Mid 80s, yeah, downtown. Tribeca definitely wasn't the Tribeca that it is now. Jay-Z, Beyonce, De Niro.
Nobu, yeah.
Yeah, Nobu. It definitely was more of like an artist neighborhood. I believe it was a bunch of warehouses that they, gave to a bunch of artists.
Yeah.
And kind of a rent control setup. And then it just kind of flourished.
Yeah.
And now I would call it maybe Upper East Side number 2, And yeah.
It was pretty dope. So we actually have a lot of crossover here because you're talking mid 80s. My parents, who are Chinese immigrants, had a import-export warehouse on Franklin Street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's super close.
Super close, like 4 blocks away.
And so what they would do is they would bring me to work, but then when I was like sort of in my 13 to 15 years old, which was in the mid 80s. I was born in 75. So this is like 89, 90. They would bring me to work and then they would just let me roam downtown Tribeca and the Village.
Yeah.
And, back then, so you must know this story of like just how Broadway and Soho and the Village was like with Antique Boutique and like Unique and what was that sneaker store on Broadway and Canal? Was it like Broadway Sneakers or Canal Sneakers or something like that? Or Canal Jean Company?
Yeah, Canal Jean Company's right there.
I mean,
for sure.
like, that's kind of like streetwear before there was a name called streetwear, right?
Well, it's just even crazy that you said, your parents would let you kind of wander around because that neighborhood, after like 6 o'clock, it just goes dead.
Yeah.
So you'd be able to just kind of walk around. There'd really be no one to bother you. It was kind of a ghost town. And really, it was a neighborhood that people didn't even know about until mid-90s or something. A lot of my friends, I would tell them where I lived, and they had no idea where that was. They didn't even think it was Manhattan.
Right.
And then it turned into something else.
Yeah. I used to get my haircut at Astor Place.
Oh, man. I actually wanted to make a trip before I
think it's changed now.
Really? Because, it's hard to find a good haircut in LA because they're just a little too gentle on your head. I want my head. I want to get slapped around a little bit.
Right, and then they put the isopropyl rubbing alcohol on your head right afterwards.
Yeah.
No, I got like hustled on my first 3-card money like around there. Like that's the best. Oh, and then there was that mixtape spot on like 3rd Ave and St. Mark's, Jibo the Pro and stuff. No, that's the best. That breeding ground of like New York City is. Just there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that you got your upbringing there is pretty amazing.
I mean, listen, I think that really has turned me into the person that I am because it was just like constant stimulus, where there was visual, it was just all around you, and it was something that I went to high school on the Upper West Side, and I remember the kids used to make fun of me because I didn't match. My clothes didn't match. And then that was like the time period that I started to realize that I was different because of the area of town that I came from. And at the time, I was probably a little bit more embarrassed of it. There was this kid, what was his name? Jose Ortiz. That was his name. Jose Ortiz was his name. And he was a year older, and he was me for Halloween. And he was wearing mismatched sneakers, and like he just looked ridiculous. And I was so embarrassed. At the time I was super embarrassed.
You became a costume meme
before
memes were invented.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look back on it though, there was an older kid dressing up as me. So there's some impact, I guess.
Some influence. Happening.
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
So was sneakers always a thing back then for you, even at a young age?
Always the thing. I don't even know if it was necessarily design, but it was just like what I was interested in.
Was it from sport or was it from the...
It was basketball, it was rap, it was TV, because, Seinfeld, Will Smith. Like
Jerry Seinfeld, the OG sneaker.
But even if you look at any Fresh Prince episode, like Will is... And a lot of the times, if you tell me an episode, I could tell you what shoe he was wearing. Like even the episode where he like went back into the house and it was all empty, he's wearing white on white Carolina 11s. You know what I mean? Like there's almost sneakers that align with like scenes on that show, but... It was just that, and sneakers are kind of like sculptures. So I just strangely had this like connection to them, and they made me feel a certain way when I put them on. Yeah. And back then, it really was this kind of like underground thing that you really had to like do your research. So there was this amazing sense of discovery. You know what I mean? Like I remember seeing A-Life in a magazine for the first time, seeing all that mahogany wood and red carpet. It looked like a regal display of footwear I'd never seen before, and then searching for it,
LES,
exploring through like at the time dangerous LES, and then like hoping you don't get mugged on the way back. Trying to find Nom de Guerre, being told it's like under a Swatch shop, but you don't know, just there was something really like emotional that existed back then. And I feel like an old guy, saying that, I think those times are gone. Maybe I'm looking at it through different eyes. But, it was a really fun time. There was a whole circuit of sneaker stores, and you would just go to like see them. It was like experiential, It wasn't, you didn't even necessarily to go to buy things, or you couldn't even afford to get things, but just to see it and be there. And we weren't even going for like an Instagram photo. We were just going for
absorbing.
for the experience.
Right. Did you think back then that like this is going to be a career for you?
I mean, I've been applying to Nike since I was like 12 years old. So like
writing them letters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was definitely something that I wanted to be a part of. You know what I mean? I didn't know to what extent, because at the time it wasn't design talent that I thought I was displaying. It was just like artistic talent. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can draw sneakers. So like, fuck with me, because I can draw sneakers. And that never happened. You know what I mean? That's definitely one of the first loves in my life that I was never able to conquer, that I'm now happy, I'm okay with. Mm-hmm. But for the longest time, really bothered me a lot, to sometimes see my peers get to go there. I worked with this girl, Jin Hong, at Haan, and we worked under this guy, Jeff Henderson, and he was this old Nike guy. He was there for 15 years, and we both were at Haan for about 3 years, and then afterwards, Jen ended up getting a job at Nike, and at the time, the amount of rage that I felt, like you'll never understand.
But you were at Haan when it was under Nike.
It was exactly. Well, I was there for 3 years when it was under Nike, and then they sold us. Okay. So that was like this kind of period of uncertainty. Like I was told that I was safe, but I'm only like 3 or 4 years out of college, so this is my first time seeing like I guess what you'd call a corporate takeover.
Right.
And like I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. I'm just happy to like make my drawings become real. Like I'm just tripping off that still. So,
okay. So where'd you go to college?
Went to college at Syracuse University.
Okay. Industrial design.
Industrial design.
Why industrial design? Is that like the closest you could get to shoe design?
Well, so fashion just felt a little, I don't want to say less serious, but it was just like, it felt a little too apparel based. And then so my parents were like, I had a bunch of artistic talent. I could draw, I could paint, I could like look at something and make it, I could draw something exactly the same. But they just wanted to make sure I didn't like major in drawing or painting. And that's not to say that you can't make money doing that, but it's a little harder. So they were like, you're going to either major in architecture or you're going to major in industrial design. Architecture was very rigid. So I was like, let me go the industrial design route. And I thought it was really cool because you can make anything. And now going back to what you were saying about, living in a time where people can do so many different things, and it's you increase your value by being able to wear more hats. I really think industrial design has turned me into kind of like a design renaissance man, because I have a strong understanding of product, but then I also obsess over typography, and I understand white space, and I think that all of these attributes are kind of what make up my design chops.
Right,
and it's important to be able to sit in a room with different people and be able to, I guess, participate in different conversations.
Hearing Salehe begin to break down his pre-Versace days makes you start to think that maybe this was all destined for him. Growing up in downtown New York City, exploring all of the different cultures that it had to offer, it was like a breeding ground and the start for his love of sneaker culture, all the while honing that artistic eye. Soon, it would just be a matter of fine-tuning his craft, and looking back now, doing it with the real intent of being marketable for sneakers. There are so many tracks you can take when being creative. For example, with me, when I decided to go to art school, I had to start in foundation, which is like all the basics: 2D drawing, color theory, composition, typography, etc. Then decided that I wanted to do product design, and I was doing it. But a fateful day where my admissions counselor saw the posters and artwork that I had plastered all over my walls made her say, "What are you doing in product design? You should be in communications design." That would kind of change the course of my life, to be honest. The point is, with creativity or design, you can meander. In fact, you should treat design like a buffet where you can sample different fields and decide which one is best for you. Or maybe decide you just want to mix them all together. But for Salehe, he always knew where he wanted to land. If it wasn't the swoosh, it had to at least be in footwear. He's proof that every decision you make can lead you to a different path. And sometimes it's not always forward. Sometimes it's sideways. And sometimes it's even backwards. But even though there are some forks or detours along that path, it's the culmination of your past experiences that will ensure you end up where you need to be. Did you have odd jobs going in, like high school, college era? Did you intern at places or anything like that?
My first ever shoe job was this spot called Shane and Sean, these two twins. I'm not sure if their company still exists anymore. I think they do consulting work, but it was this shop over on like Mulberry Street.
Like a design studio?
No, it was a design
Or a
studio in the
shop.
back, and it was a shop.
Okay.
And it was like their whole aesthetic was kind of like rocker, like so far from what I was trying to be a part of. But I just thought it was really important to just get my feet wet and just experience it.
Yeah.
And then it was funny even because like even though that wasn't my aesthetic, I think I started drinking the Kool-Aid, and like maybe 3 months later I put together this whole presentation, and I was pretty confident they were going to give me a job, and I like sat them down and I was like, all right, this is, I was just showing them a bunch of like ballpoint, like, pin drawings thinking this was it, right?
Yeah.
And then I presented it to them, and they told me no, and I was crushed, and like I didn't really want to work there, but I was just, this is my first job. I'm getting a paycheck. I'm seeing my like 2-dimensional drawings, go from paper to tangible, and that in itself, walking down the street and seeing someone in my work, like to a designer, is like, as I'm sure is crazy.
Yeah. To this day, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the first one. And then, in college, I worked at like a yoga studio. Some friends of mine opened this yoga studio. They were like, you want to work the desk? I was like, sure. Just make some extra bucks. But a lot of the time it was really just like focused on like design.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like the first gig out of college was Payless.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet there's not too many people who have worked at Payless and Versace. You might be the only human.
So there's actually some story on like Footwear News. I forget where it is, but it says how a designer went from Payless to Versace.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's
you must be the only guy.
Yeah. I was just trying to get my feet wet, and I just wanted to like start building up that resume, because you in college you hear that like you essentially are your resume.
Yeah.
And I just thought that my portfolio was strong. I felt like I had talent, but I just wanted to be able to put some names on there, and so I knew that by getting into Payless, that would make me just look a little bit better to the next thing.
Right.
And
it was a stepping stone.
It was a stepping stone, 100%.
Payless where was it?
It was on like 18th and 5th.
Right.
Yeah, right around
I've been
there.
to that office.
Yeah.
We did a 3-year project with Payless.
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. It was with Airwalk.
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Were you there at that time?
So I graduated 2009, so this was 2009, 2010.
Okay. I think we might have been before.
Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually, maybe like 6 months into the job, I was only there for like 3 months. I ran into Kanye.
Not at Payless?
Well, it was lunchtime. This was before I figured out how to dress in the professional environment.
Yeah.
So I'm wearing like, square toe dress shoes, pleated slacks that don't fit me, like super long, like Oxford shirt. And I'm just like walking around to go to lunch. I see Kanye in a taxi.
Okay.
This is back when you never see Kanye. This is kind of pre-social media, right? So I'm like, oh shit. The cab turns the corner. 2 blocks later, he gets out. So I book it down the block, right? He's walking into a building. I'm like, Kanye. I'm a designer. Put me on. Please put me on. And he turns around. He looks at me. He gives me the up and down. I described what I was wearing. So, he probably didn't like what he saw. But then he had Don C take my information. So I'm thinking I made it, right? I ran back to...
Don C was with him.
Don C was with him and maybe one other dude. I run back to my desk thinking I'm waiting for the email, like, welcome to Donda,
Yeah.
And nothing came. But
nothing ever came.
Nothing ever came.
At that point, nothing came.
At that point, nothing came. But then I don't know, 7 years later or something like that?
Right.
Full circle moment, yeah.
Does he remember that story?
No, and because I told him...
Does Don C even remember?
It's funny. I haven't spoken to Don C about it, but because his office is in my building. But I told Ye about it, and he wasn't that amused. I mean, considering the amount of people that probably come up to him being like, "Yo, I met you. I met you 2 years ago."
Right.
Who cares, So, but it was crazy though. It was definitely full circle.
How long were you at Payless?
Payless was short lived. I mean, I'd have to pull up my LinkedIn, but I would say 3 or 4 months.
Oh wow,
it's super short.
Okay,
super
what was
short.
Next? Cole Haan?
So right after that, I went to this spot called Fortune Footwear that was in Tribeca. Again, educational moment. They did a lot of licensee work. So I was doing like Steve Madden, Birkenstock. Beyonce's mom had a brand, like, what was it called? Like House of Darion or something like that. So I was working on
licensing.
Licensing, yeah. So I was working on a good 6 or 7 brands. And again, but it was women's heels, right? And like my dream is to be like designing Kobe's. So I'm like, I'm so far from where I want to be.
Well, it's weird. To most people, like, you're in the same world. Like, oh, you're doing footwear.
Exactly.
But to you, you're like, no, I'm like 80 light years away.
So far, Yeah. So, but at the same time, because this is a culture where they're like biting high fashion brands. When I say that, I mean like a Steve Madden.
Yeah.
I'm like learning how to say Givenchy or Balenciaga,
Right.
right? Because when I first started, I was like, yo, those Givenchys over there, pass them here.
Versace.
Exactly, 100%. So, that, again, it was education.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily the happiest. I wasn't really like telling people what I was doing, but I was in footwear and I was learning. But then simultaneously, like 4 blocks away, Dame Dash is opening up a space called DD 172.
Okay.
On Duane Street, which is coincidentally 2 blocks away from where I grew up. So I walk by and I'm just like confused because, Tribeca is like kind of a quaint neighborhood, and just I saw the diversity, I saw the beauty, I saw the creativity. And I was just like, what is this? I want to be a part of this. Because to me, in my head, the professional workspace was about like, khakis and like, gray walls. So like to see this, I was like, this is a workspace.
I've heard of DD 172, but I never knew what they did out of that space.
So it was really like, the way he described it, he said it was kind of like an Andy Warhol factory.
Okay.
So, they were doing photography, they were doing fashion, they were doing music. They had these under 100 parties where there would be performances in the basement, but because of the fire code, it would have to be under 100
people.
Under 100 people. So it was like, Currency and Mos Def would perform, and it was just these little intimate performances. And it was surreal because it's like I grew up too, like things weren't happening like this, So I was just like, how can I become a part of this? It wasn't even necessarily like a footwear opportunity, but I'm like, I'm coming off of Payless, and then I'm coming off of designing shoes and malls. Maybe maybe I lost sight of the goal a little bit for a second. I was just like, I want to be a part of this. This looks fun. Like maybe fun started to outweigh the dream.
So how are you getting involved? You're just like hanging out?
So I first started like
being the annoying person?
Kind of, yeah. I just started kind of showing up, and like at the time I was carrying around this like wood briefcase. That was my way to get like noticed. And it's actually funny. I was at Payless, this dude Kevin Leung. Do you know him?
Yeah, from Fat Farm.
100. Yeah. So he comes in and he's like apparently consulting or something. And his whole fit was just clean, and he's carrying this wood briefcase. I'm like, yo, who is this guy?
Yeah. And
apparently he was there to get a check to do some consulting, but that was low key what inspired the wooden briefcase. So I would just go through DD 172 and try to get seen. Kind of. This was like the early days.
But it wasn't a store, right?
Not really. I mean, they would do like maybe some Adidas, kind of launch where there might be a few T-shirts for sale on the front.
Okay.
But it was a super just casual environment where there were constantly people working on things.
Yeah.
He had I think he had like a little like record label out of there too. It was called like Black Rock or Blue Rock or something, and there was a rock element to it. Stally, Currency. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And for me, these are some of the people that Mos Def I was and am a huge fan of, and to just see him was like, fuck shoes. I'm here now, you know? So I just did that, and then eventually I got cool with the graphic designers, David Chang and David Barnett. You know those guys?
China.
Yeah, exactly.
I only know China.
Shout out China.
Well, David Chang is China.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
China.
being racist.
No, that's China.
His nickname
David
is
Chang,
China.
Yeah. And then David Barnett, he was like the other illustrator. So basically, I went to Duane Reade and got one of those TV dinner tables. Put it in their office, and I was like, I work here now, guys. and I started working there.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of respected it.
Did you quit the other job?
Well, so that's what started. Like I started spending more time there than I was at the job, and then I started working on things for Dame at my other job.
Okay.
Because I was inspired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so. Eventually, that job fizzled out, and then I was 100% of my time was going to DD 172.
Okay.
And so
how was it like working for Dame?
It's interesting. Our relationship has evolved. At the time, I was scared. Right. This is Dame Dash, boardroom Dame Dash.
I feel like he's always on the verge of ripping your head off.
He doesn't fuck around. You know what I mean? And he's a New Yorker, so he's not taking shit. So I respect it. He has a lot of wisdom. And so at the time, I was definitely a little scared. Currently, he's a resource of wisdom for me. While I work, I like to listen to a lot of podcasts, and as a way to kind of just have something on in the background. And I would listen to a lot of Dame Dash interviews. He has a great Breakfast Club one I recommend. And then I realized I was like, oh wait a minute, I know him. Right.
I know this guy.
Let me get some gems in person. So I kind of just like reached back out and I gotta go visit he has a studio in Pasadena or something. I don't know LA. I've lived there for 4 years. I still don't know where the hell I am half the time. But yeah, Dame is a great guy.
Didn't he move to LES for like Poppington?
So he had Poppington, which seemed like the offshoot of what DD 172 was. That seemed to be more of like an art gallery. And then I know he did a few movies at the time, which I haven't seen. I need to check him out.
Yeah.
And then I know he recently just started like a 24-hour TV network. He's always on something, and like I'm really inspired by those types of people. Again, going back to what you said about wearing different hats, like whether it's like a Kanye or a Dame, to just be able to dip your feet in like different
anything you want.
Anything you want. I mean, you want to be careful to not be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But at the same time, like there's so many, different outlets to create. There's so many different ways to get money. So you're really doing yourself a disservice if you can only do one thing.
Yeah. How was financially speaking, like going from Payless to, what was it called? The second place?
Fortune Footwear
to DD 172. Like, was that a pay cut?
Yes, I would probably say a little bit. But strangely at the time though, and this sounds crazy to say, it wasn't really about the money because I was just happy to make a check. It was like, as long as I have income so that this little blue card in my wallet keeps working when I use it, then I'm happy, you know what I mean? But then like, the whole Dame thing introduced like, oh wow, like I can make money and I can have fun. Like this is different.
Right.
Because at the two previous jobs, it was like, I wasn't necessarily the happiest making a paycheck, but it's like, I'm just like uncomfortable in this corporate setting. I'm working on product that I don't even like. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this was the first time that I was like, wow, like I'm having fun. I'm making some money and I feel like a little cool doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you got a real job again after that.
So I got a real job again after that.
What happened? So tell us what happened. Why?
So I would just say that, again, going back to maybe the analogy of it being like an Andy Warhol type factory, maybe it lacked a little structure, I would say.
Like where paychecks come in on the regular?
Or just even, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but it's just more like when it really is about the creativity and it really is about the art and the execution, then like, and there's really literally no suits around. Like it's just creative.
Yeah.
So sometimes when it's just creatives, like you lack that.
Right. It's a little bit of like, what was the one where the kids take over the whole island?
Oh, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. It's a bit like that, right?
Yeah.
Where like the renegades just have control.
Absolutely.
Like everyone hates suits, but sometimes you need a little bit of like...
Yeah, you need one in the room. Yeah. just one.
Right. So you felt a little bit like, I mean, what, you were just having too much fun? Like there was just no structure at all? You wanted some structure
I would just say, again, the passion was sneakers. And it was like, we were doing some stuff with Adidas where I was kind of getting to like work on things that probably at the time I was fronting that I had way more involvement than I did just because I was trying to, step up, make myself look valuable. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it really wasn't footwear. So that, I probably maybe started getting a little bored. Things shine a little brighter when you first see them and then you get used to them. Yeah. So it was time to kind of get back to footwear.
And that was what?
Haan.
Okay, cool.
So Haan was probably the first big opportunity.
Yeah.
So I first got the gig where I was just kind of freelancing. I was like a freelancer where I was maybe there for 2 months, there to help out with CAD work, color up, something like that. My second day, there's this tall guy walking around with a pair of like one-of-one Jordan 1s I'd never seen before. I'm like, yo, who is that? I find out it's this guy. His name's Jeff Henderson. He worked at Nike for 15 years. He just joined Haan, and he's starting an innovation team. My eyes get huge, right? Yeah. Because now, at first, I'm in Haan, boring brown shoes and wingtips.
Right.
No disrespect, but again, for me being the sneaker lover, that was my perspective. And then all of a sudden, guy from Nike starting innovation team. Yeah. Innovation, the magic word. And we're gonna use Nike technology. Like I'm like, wait a minute. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, I've now almost like reached where I want to be. So
you're like, I can grab it.
I can touch it, right? I can smell it. So I hear he's gonna do a tour around the office, and I had some sketching ability, so I opened up my sketchbook and I just slid it to the end of my desk, trying to essentially get him to see it as he was walking around.
Awesome. That's viral marketing at its best. So you dropped the notebook. Like,
That's it.
Can you pick that up?
I put it. It was like blatantly on the edge of my desk.
So he would like tip it. Like, over.
With color and everything. So he walked by.
Did it work?
It worked. He walked by. He saw it. We spoke for like a second, and then he kept it moving. He, Jeff is a 100% chess player, so he definitely didn't like let me see that he liked the work or anything like that. So when he walked away, I didn't even know if it, it worked. But I don't know.
So what? He asked you to be on the innovation team?
Asked me to be on the innovation team. So it was me, him, and then the girl I mentioned earlier, Jin Hong, who's now at Nike, and we were the innovation team. And
wow.
And it was like a completely unexpected opportunity. We're getting to use, lunar foam
Yeah.
and air bubbles. And
That's where the LunarGrand came out.
Yeah,
of,
so
right?
we created the LunarGrand.
Yeah.
Jeff was the design director on that project, and yeah, that in itself was crazy. You know, I'm expecting to do like hard bottom wingtips, and a few months later, like I'm like in Oregon, like figuring out how we're gonna like change the face of like Haan innovation. It's like a.
And if you think about it, like that silhouette of the LunarGrand to this day, like is one of the newest icons of footwear. Like I'm not trying to overstate it, but like if you think about like the Chuck Taylor, Jack Purcell, Air Force One, if you just look at the outline of the LunarGrand, it's like a staple in footwear, period, for decades. Like if you work at a 9-to-5 job and you have to look somewhat corporate, that shoe is like your Air Jordan.
Well, it was an amazing shoe because not only, it solved for function. For the longest time, like dress shoes represented being uncomfortable. It was like, church, a wedding, or a funeral, right? And like as soon as you got home, you had to like, or you wanted to rip them off.
Yeah.
And they were the worst. And to create a shoe that, got the respect of a formal piece of footwear, but then at the same time felt like a sneaker was kind of revolutionary. There was so much pushback. A lot of people didn't understand it.
From Cole?
I don't want to point fingers, but I would just say people involved, there was pushback. And just because they didn't understand it. And people don't like what's different. People don't like change.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, I do think it was super revolutionary. And I think that so much trickled down from it. This was right around the time that like Mark McNary was doing all those like colored EVA outsoles. So I would say that kind of like fit within the narrative.
Yeah. And
it was a really special time.
Were you there when Fragment did one?
Yeah, so we did the Fragment. So and I think that this, this whole LunarGrand experience was kind of what helped educate me on how you introduce a piece of footwear, but then all the extra bells and whistles you add to it to get it over the wall. Yeah. So, the shoe's created, it's a beautiful piece of design work, and then the next step is like, how do we give it momentum? So we did like a Fragment collaboration. Who else did we collaborate with? I'm like forgetting.
Was there a Mastermind?
I don't think there might, or maybe Undercover. There was an all black one. I forget.
Yeah.
But again, Jeff like having those like Nike relationships,
right.
So like he knew the right people at the time. And really being the sneaker obsessed person I was, I didn't even know who Hiroshi was. And I remember I was like coming back from lunch and I saw him sitting on the couch and he was wearing some like unreleased Nikes, not knowing who he was. I was like, oh, can I take a picture of those? And he was like, no. So like, but yeah, I got sunned. But we met later and he seemed like a good dude. But yeah, I had to be educated on who he was at the time.
He's the best.
No, he's a good dude.
I was hanging out with him once at the Mercer Hotel in the lobby, and this guy comes up and he's like, oh, Hiroshi-san, I just want to introduce myself. He's bowing so deep. I've never seen a man bow so much. Finally, he puts his head up. He's like, my name is Travis Scott. And this was like this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
really?
and Hiroshi's like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, didn't even move. It was dope.
That's fucking great.
All right, so you're at Haan. It sounds like you're pretty happy.
Very happy.
And you're at the doorstep of Beaverton. Did you get to go to Beaverton?
Got to go to Beaverton a few times.
Nice. To campus.
Got to go to campus. Got to meet Tinker. One of my biggest regrets is right before we went into the kitchen, or actually the
innovation
the
kitchen?
jungle. The jungle was like the thing behind that, right?
Right.
My boss Jeff was like, "Don't ask Tinker for a picture. I want him to view you as a designer and not a fanboy." and I kind of regret that to this day because I would love to have a picture of Tinker, me as like a young designer, wide-eyed, but whatever.
Oh, you must have felt like I'm so close right now.
Oh, so close. And then the craziest thing was maybe 3 or 4 months into the opportunity, he was like, I think I can get you in at Nike. But then strangely, I was like, I kind of want to stay here. Because like I had this like Yoda-like teacher. We're working with Nike stuff. And it was strange. I kind of just wanted to stay.
You felt good, yeah.
I felt good, yeah.
It was New York too, right?
It was New York.
Yeah.
It felt comfortable. And then it was like a small team, so we had a lot of influence. But then at the same time, since we were innovation, I was told that about 70 to 80% of what we make wasn't going to see the light of day. And for a young designer that all I want is to see my things on, my designs on people's feet, that was like the worst thing to hear. But again, I'm getting educated, I'm getting to work on product, and it's like Nike adjacent. Right. So I feel like it's like I'm almost like what's like the D League team for like, or the G League team for like the Knicks, right? Like I'm almost there, Right. Well, not the Knicks, but
not G League. Better than that. You were under the umbrella. You were under the swoosh umbrella.
I'm like on the practice team or something.
But I mean, like, talk about the importance of the art of like just dabbling. like from Payless to like Steve Madden license shit to Dame, and then now to Cole Haan innovation. And this is all in a span of like, just to give perspective, like from Payless to Cole Haan, how long are we talking?
Like 5 years maybe?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, so, but at the time though, I didn't really necessarily think I was like loading up my bag, like my arsenal. It was more like I was just kind of, I guess, trying to tackle the next obstacle. You know, I looking back, I'm like, oh, I was educating myself, and oh, these were all stepping stones. But back then, it was more like, okay, I need like a check, and I need to like,
right. It was just a hustle.
Yeah,
back then.
it was.
But
the
now
hustle.
you're like, yes, I was sampling all aspects.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, well, now I can like actually look back and kind of like analyze it, and I've now had the opportunity a few times to discuss it, and I've been able to kind of think.
You know, I think a lot of times the younger generation of people coming up in the creative professional world feel like a lot of anxiety and or like sort of commitment to like, I'm going to do this one thing and it's got to be my thing. And they won't take the step forward to even experiment or try or fail. And I think part of that is because there's so much like fucking visibility nowadays where like if you're a kid coming out of art school and your first job is Payless and it's on your LinkedIn and on your IG profile, like I could see people being like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like I'm too, you know, like there's a lot of pride and ego now.
Well, these days, I mean, everything's about like image and perception. So like, it's strange because, you know, if I worked at Payless now, I don't think it'd be all over my Instagram, right? But like back then, I didn't have to worry about that. It was just like, that was my job. My immediate group of friends maybe knew, and they were just like happy to see that I had a job, right?
Yeah.
So,
but now image is like
such a huge thing. And then strangely, I almost disagree. I think that these days, you know, you see a kid's Instagram and it says photographer, model, creative director.
Yeah.
And now I almost think that sometimes people don't value what it is to, you know, master a craft.
Oh, okay.
You know, the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like,
right.
And
they have 1 hour in 10,000 things.
Exactly.
Which is also a plus. There's a plus in that.
I think it's important to know a little bit about a lot, right? Like you can, you know, you just add more to your repertoire of information.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, let's say the world's ending and we need a carpenter. Where's that carpenter at,
right.
So yeah.
I could DJ though.
Exactly.
If it's Serato. Salehe's resume is so interesting and great because what it reads is as someone who has a level of patience, perseverance, humility, and the ability to act like a sponge in any situation he finds himself in. At this point in his career, if I came from the future and said, Salehe, you're going to be at Versace, he himself wouldn't believe me. But life is an everyday grind, isn't it? Trust me, Salehe didn't know he was building blocks towards a dream career. He was hustling, grinding, just in it, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to find a balance of job satisfaction, decent money, and a personal life. Just like most of us listening right now, this second. What's important is that no matter what situation you're in, you are able to take the very best asset of each situation and parlay that into prepping for the next step. The dream job might be a faraway journey, or it might be 24 hours away. Nobody knows. Nike was always in Salehe's sights, but how does that look like sitting at a desk at Payless? Even being at the literal doorstep of Nike, meeting Tinker Hatfield, he felt at the same time close, but miles away. And I love that even when his mentor gave him the chance to go, he chose to stay in the pocket at Cole Haan. Being mindful of what each role means to you is laying down the path to that dream job. Salehe said it, at that moment, this was just a hustle. But now he's able to analyze it and see it as stepping stones. Hopefully, right now in your life, you can see it that way as well. How do you finally make the departure out of Cole Haan?
So Cole Haan, we're sold.
Out of Nike, Nike sold
Nike
it.
Sells us to Apex Group, I think it was called.
Like a private equity group.
Private equity. And then it's like, did you see that Ben Stiller Disney movie, The Heavyweights? And You know, when they're all in the auditorium and then the lights turn down and then the music starts playing and Ben Stiller comes out and it just feels like the whole like culture is changing. That's what it felt like. It was just it went from
changed,
like you know, youthful Nike, design-led innovation, blah blah blah, to just like corporate. And then not only that, but I'm now moved from the innovation team to the men's design team, which at the time didn't seem like that big of a deal, but just things changed. I'm working with different people. I feel like I've kind of lost the respect that I've gained, because in that 3 years being a young designer, I had to kind of prove myself through, you know, execution, design, and just a history of projects.
Jeff Henderson still there?
Jeff Henderson's still there. And then I get an offer from this brand that I don't want to say. Feel free to look at my LinkedIn. But they offer me 6 figures for the first time, which at the time I'm like, I'm rich. Like,
that's the barometer of success.
Yeah, at that
first
time,
barometer,
exactly. I'm like 6 figures. Psst, I'm good, right? So I'm like, okay, the storm clouds are rolling in over here. And then over here, this company is offering me more money than I've ever seen. It's not even remotely what again, going back to like wanting to get to a Nike, it's not remotely where I want to be, the kind of product I want to be working on, but the money's right. And I'm like, let's just like see how this goes, because it's still footwear, right?
Can you just say the company and we'll beep it out?
Yeah, it's called Okay. All right. So that was the name.
What kind of? I've never heard of this brand.
So they make crochet footwear, right? It's sold in like Macy's, like the entire
like
business.
espadrille type stuff. Like,
but no, they'll literally make like a sneaker, but it's like crochet. Like that's their business. Like
wow.
they actually
that
like,
could almost be super fly too,
right? Well, part of me was like, I was trying to like, yeah, right. I was like, I can maybe make this kind of cool, like if I, you know, and it just wasn't that, and it was like basically a family business. So like a lot of the like rules and regulations of a normal office place, I felt like weren't really happening, and it just was like a little backwards. So, you know, I was kind of trying to get out of there, you know, pretty soon or pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So then after that, Greats is where I went.
Nice.
So I was very familiar with John Buscemi. You know, growing up, it was really Nike, Reebok, Adidas, and then all of a sudden, this brand Gourmet comes out, right?
Yep.
They release these all canvas Jordans.
Yeah.
On I think it was vulcanized outsoles, and they were like super fire.
Yep.
And
with the natural color, right? All natural.
There was
canvas.
natural, but then there was like purple, and like there was a few colors. I think they did the 12s and maybe like the 13. I forget. It was a while. Or they definitely did the 11s. And it was just different. And it was kind of like, you know, disruptive, right? Because it was illegal as well, right? They got like a cease and desist. Yeah, it was super illegal, but it was disruptive, and it was again just seeing how like footwear can be executed in certain ways and introduced into the market in certain ways to just completely like get everyone's attention. Like that was super interesting. And then they started creating their own footwear, the Quadici, that like duck boot with the air bubble in the bottom, and I was like, this stuff is great, and it doesn't have a swoosh on it. Like what? Like so then I figure out, you know, who John is. So then fast forward, I hear that he's starting Greats. And I'm like, this is amazing, right? Because this is probably the closest I'm going to get to where I want to be. I'm going to be able to control it. Like it's small, like so I don't have to like convince a bunch of people, because I'm coming off of Haan where it's corporate, right? So you have to, it's meetings and CCing and all that stuff. None of that, right? So I interview, I get the job, and then it was great because this is the first opportunity where I felt like I was doing a little bit more teaching than learning. Yeah. And then not only that...
because they needed your expertise on...
I don't know if I'd call it expertise at the time, but they needed experience, right? And I had a little bit. But then I also had relationships. I was getting to facilitate collaboration. So we collaborated with Only. We did a shoot with them. We collaborated with Pierre Moss. So we got our very new...
There's a Greats Pierre Moss?
Yeah, there's a Greats Pierre Moss. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like this Italian runner. And I couldn't tell you the show, but... just to even, you know, this startup sneaker brand, like we're on a runway, and that came from just like the friendship, a relationship with Kirby. And who else did we collaborate with? I forget, but you know, we were doing a bunch, and I felt like I was getting to actually execute my ideas, whereas in the past it was about either being the pencil for someone else or bringing someone else's ideas to fruition. This felt like I really had the reins.
Did you go back below 6-figure salary?
Yes. Yes, I did.
So you you're all stoked on the 6 figures. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, I definitely did.
There's this weird balance in your life that seems to be a running theme where it's like the more fun you have, the less money you make,
yeah.
and the worse your life is, the more money you make.
Yeah.
Is that? Would you say that's just a rule of thumb for all of
in the
creatives?
beginning, maybe
You just have to put in your
you just
your
have to
due
put
time,
you have
right?
to put in the time, and like it's funny because now I speak to a lot of young creatives, and like I give them the old guy answer of like it's about the journey, and like while that sounds so corny, it is. And then I would say the best piece of advice that like I thought was the dumbest thing to hear when I was younger was you can do anything if you put your mind to it. When people told me that, I'd be like, shut up. But like really, it's true. It's crazy because it's true, right?
Greats is a great brand, by the way, which ironically, if I'm not mistaken, just got bought by Steve Madden.
Just got bought by Steve Madden, yeah. This was maybe...
So here you are designing for both.
Right? A lot of full
you
circle
could have
moments.
facilitated that collaboration to happen.
Maybe.
Okay, so where do you go from Greats?
So after Greats...
By the way, you're like the journeyman of like
Yeah,
New
well,
York
it's
City.
it's funny because a lot of people
It's
told
like
me
the
that...
seventh job.
No, people told me that the amount of time I had spent at those brands in the beginning, you know, Haan was a little under 3.5. That was my longest. But that may not have looked the best on my resume, so...
No, I think it's learned. Some people do want to stack the resume, and that sounded like it was your intention. But I have heard where, like, if your resume is like 3 pages deep, you might want to start editing stuff out because you look non-committal.
Exactly, and that's why maybe again, maybe I'm indifferent, but that's why I wasn't trying to mention because if I'm trying to be this special Versace designer, I don't know if I want to be talking about crochet sneakers and shit, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
but
whatever.
I'm indifferent though.
Okay. So after Greats,
so during Greats,
okay.
I reach out to Rem Koolhaas, whose uncle is the architect, right?
Oh.
Rem Koolhaas.
Not Rem Koolhaas. His
uncle is the famous architect.
Okay.
But then his name is Rem Koolhaas as well.
Oh, okay.
He's the nephew.
Okay.
And he has a brand called United Nude.
Yes.
And they make I was in Amsterdam right before reaching out. I walk into this store, the walls start changing colors. Nothing to do with my activities in Amsterdam. It was just a crazy interior.
Yeah.
And I just reached out. You know, I'm a big believer in digital fishing, and you know, our parents had to hand out business cards, and we can just move our thumb to meet people. So, I reached out and I was like, "Hey, your brand's amazing. I'm a footwear designer. I'd love to other opportunities." And he was like, "I'm actually doing a design charrette in a few weeks, where I'm going to fly out 5 designers from around the world just to just do a 2-week intensive just idea injection, right?" So he was like, "Would you like to come?" So,
I've never heard of this. I'm so out of the loop.
yeah, so it's just I've more so heard of them in college, but it's just you focus on I don't know, maybe the water bottle, right? And we just sit here for 2 weeks, and every day everyone is focusing on the water bottle, whether it's packaging, marketing, whatever.
And United Nude was hosting this.
They were hosting this, and you just put a bunch of ideas on the wall, and then the goal is at the end of the week you have maybe 2 or 3 really strong ideas, right? So I went out there, had a whole lot of really cool work because it was just there were no rules, right? I think this was in Guangzhou, China.
Okay.
And so then
Did you go out on behalf of Greats or on behalf of yourself?
On behalf of myself.
Okay.
And I'm messing up the timing because I don't think I necessarily did that when I was a Greats employee.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not doing that for interview purposes. I really don't. Yeah, I think that was after. But anyway, so I'm having lunch with Jeff.
Which Jeff?
Jeff Henderson from Haan.
Wait.
Sorry. So I do the United Nude thing.
Okay.
Come back. Randomly, I'm having lunch with Jeff because we just would catch up every 3 to 4 months. He's like, "Do you know what I'm doing?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I'm designing for Kanye." At that time, I was like, "Oh," in my head, I was like, "Oh my God!" But he would always sun me for overreacting, so I just tried to stay chill.
Yeah.
But then,
and this is Kanye post Nike.
This is Kanye post Nike, but this is
pre anything.
I don't know, maybe the 750s. I think the 750s have come out. But that was it. It was the grainy leaked plane photo, and then maybe you'd seen him wearing them, but it was kind of it. So he's like, "I'm working for Kanye. He wants someone to come out to LA, and I'm not in a position to do it. So put together some work. I'll send it to him, and we'll see what happens."
Okay.
I had just come off the United Nude thing. I have all this forward innovative ideas. So I'm hopefully he'll like it because it's not just your average lace up. So I send it over. It took a few months, and then I got the call to come out there and meet him. Right.
Wow.
So I go out to the office in Calabasas. They're having some meeting. It was an Adidas meeting. A bunch of people are there. I come in, I stayed quiet because I didn't really want to rock the boat. I'm super nervous, right? I'm sitting next to someone I admire on a bunch of different levels. So I just stay quiet. But at the same time, I have some locked and loaded comments like ready to go if I am spoken to, right? Because there's a shyness, but at the same time, like I'm ready to shoot.
Yeah.
So he turns to me at some point during the meeting and he was like, "What do you think of all this?" And I just like went off and like I just like spoke about a bunch and then he just kind of nodded at me, but it seemed like a nod of approval. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, I got the job and moved out to California.
But wait, in that meeting, was that your interview?
It was more just kind of like, you know,
do we vibe?
Do we vibe? Yeah, do we vibe? Like, can you sit in a room and like be okay with the fact that you're sitting next to Kanye West? Can you sit in a room next to like all this product and because you know, obviously there needs to be design talent, but then there's all these other aspects.
Yeah,
to
intangibles.
You know, act like you've been there before, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So wait, when you go to that room, there's no pre-meeting with Kanye. Like it's sit and you're in a big room.
It was kind of like double Dutch. It was like they were already jumping, and they were like, "Get in,
get in."
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
And what do you think if you like held back and just stayed well mannered and quiet?
If I hadn't spoken at all, I probably wouldn't have gotten it because I think he definitely respects a self-starter. He respects someone that is able to execute. So I think that if you can't even get over the fact that you're sitting next to him,
you can't get anywhere.
Then think because you also have to imagine all the other like names and usual suspects that you're going to see being around that camp, right? So you need to have like balls, for lack of a better term.
You know the saying, shoot your shot, but know when to shoot your shot. These are the opportunities that you probably won't ever have again. These are the moments that you replay in your head over and over thinking, did I say the right thing? Did I say everything that I needed to say? And like Salehe did, once the timing was right, shoot your shot. Sometimes they spring up out of nowhere, but more often you have a good idea that they're coming. And when you know you're meeting with someone like Kanye West or any mogul, time is money. Know when it's go time. They know what they want and they know the type of personality that they want beside them. You just have to show it to them. What got Salehe in at Yeezy wasn't just his talent. That's what brought him through the door. I'm sure someone like Kanye sees millions of talented people throughout his day. What ultimately landed Salehe the job is A, his timing, and B, his thoughtfulness. You can have the right ideas, but present it at the wrong time or in the wrong manner, and that great idea is just a lump of coal. The last 10 years of Salehe bouncing around from one seemingly random place to another prepared him for this exact second as he sat next to his future boss. He shot, he scored. Don't forget, the moments when you sit back are often the ones that speak loudest in your head. Okay, so it took another few months, and then you get an email that you got the job.
I think Jeff told me, actually, because I think until I actually got the job, I was kind of just speaking with Jeff. He was like the middleman, kind of. Yeah. And then he told me that it was like ready to go. So Kanye moved me into a hotel in Santa Monica. It was called the Wyndham. They were great people over there. And I lived there for like a month.
Yeah.
And it was surreal because I'm a New Yorker and I'm waking up to the ocean and like mountainsides and right. So it was probably the best way to get, to move to California to change the lifestyle. And then I would drive along the ocean up to Malibu, make a right into like the Topanga Canyon, I think it's called, something like that. And then that was surreal, driving through mountains. And then I'm like going to my office in the Yeezy office. It was a very surreal time.
Yeah. And what was your mission? Like, what did he task you with right away?
Men's footwear. So I was men's footwear, and then I had a counterpart. Her name was Lucette Holland. She was from Celine and Proenza Schuler. And she was heading up the women's. And we were essentially there to bring Kanye's ideas to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the shoes you did are which ones?
I don't think I should, on the record, claim.
You can't say the ones that you worked on.
Oh, I was there for season 3 and season 4, and I worked on the men's footwear, so you can do that math.
Right.
But considering I was there to bring his ideas to fruition, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking credit for that work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. These are the shoes. These weren't done by Adi, right?
Well, so at the time there was kind of two businesses. There was Yeezy and then there was Yeezy Adidas. So Yeezy was like the military boots, the women's heels, the lucite stuff. That was proper Yeezy, made in Italy. And then Adidas was 350, 750, 950. And then I believe now they've merged. But so, we were actually taking trips to Italy. I never once went to China.
Oh, wow.
It was more, on the proper Yeezy side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it always like a job for you, or were you at the same time feeling like this is fucking surreal?
It was super, super fucking surreal. I mean, I remember my first day there, I'm like setting up my office. Every designer loves to set up a desk, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like a different environment, so I didn't know how much of my personality I was trying to show. But, I'm setting up my desk, and all of a sudden, Kanye shows up. This is maybe the second or third time I've ever seen him. I'm like, this is insane. He's walking towards my office, comes right to me. He's kind of like on his phone. And I'm like, I think I was supposed to show him some designs or something. And then I stopped and I was like, listen, man, this means so much to me. Thank you. Like, I have so many ideas, blah, 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 blah. Just showing gratitude or whatever, and / introducing myself again. And then he looks up from his phone and he goes, okay, let's change the world. And at the time, like, that was like probably the craziest, like, like the 4 words that I'd ever heard. And I believed it. And I was psyched and I was ready to change the world. And that's why even now with some of his initiatives, he's not playing around. Like this guy like really does believe in this stuff, and it's not marketing. And he really does want to change the world. And, he needs to maybe figure out the ways in which he's going to do it. And maybe he's further along with some things than others, but he's not joking. And if there's one thing I learned from being around him is that he does, want to execute a lot of these ideas.
Yeah, right. How long were you there for?
A little over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So season 3, season 4, season 3 show was at Madison Square Garden. Surreal. I'm a huge Knicks fan, so to see my work like on the Jumbotron at the Garden was like insane. Was
there one where he premiered it at Randall's Island?
That was season 5.
Oh, okay.
So that was after my time.
Okay.
That was like, it was like on some triangular.
Yeah, where all the models passed out.
Yeah. I heard that. This is what I heard, allegedly.
No, I saw it for real.
Okay, your words. That was Jeff Sable?
Yep, I saw it.
Yeah, so that was season 5. Okay. And I mean, it was a really surreal time. The people that I was around, you can imagine. It was extremely demanding. But everything happens for a reason, and I really do believe that time, contributed to the overall journey. Were
you starting to get poached by other people now? Like,
no, because that job was a little bit more like top secret. Like now, it's known that I'm at Versace. But back then, like, I don't even think it was on my LinkedIn.
The confidentiality agreements were crazy, right?
Yeah, well, it was maybe less confidentiality, but it was just more like, that was more so just viewed as like distraction. Like, let's get to work. Like, like fuck press, fuck your personal notoriety. Like, you work for this place, right?
So, but it is very secretive to work there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, God forbid you post an Instagram post of inside the office.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, the only thing I think I was able to post was like the floor or something. Like, it was definitely a tight ship for sure.
Yeah. Was the demands crazy working there?
The
most demanding, like up until that point in your career?
Well, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. He knew what he wanted, and he would make sure to get what he wanted. And, he's a really good like team builder. The amount of people that have kind of come through that place and now are in way higher positions is like really impressive. And he really is like kind of like Captain Planet, where like he got like the water guy, the fire guy, Earth, you know what I mean? Like, he got
the greatest hits.
Exactly. Like, and that was kind of like, it was really inspirational work around that. And then I was even more so humbled and flattered that he saw me as one of those like Team Captain Planet. You know?
All right. So how do we transition from Yeezy to Versace?
So basically after Yeezy, I was kind of lost. And the reason I was lost is because, in footwear, that place was considered to be like the zenith, right? So I was like, what do I do next? So I kind of started just like freelancing at a few brands just to make a check. Yeah. And then that was almost like a year because I'm just like, I don't know where to like really like hang up my hat, right?
And you were in LA, sort
in
of
LA,
in a foreign,
in a
you weren't
foreign
home,
land,
yeah.
right? You know, and the strange thing is, I was so submerged into the Yeezy camp and drinking the Kool-Aid so hard that I'm like, after the job, I looked up and I was like, oh wow, I'm in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? I didn't realize where I was
Right.
almost, right?
You were actually in Yeezy land, not
Exactly,
in LA.
right? Exactly. No, for sure. So about a year passes. I'm just doing odd jobs in design, and then I decide to reach out to Versace. And the way that happens is I was on the toilet, right? And I'm on my phone, as we all are.
Yes.
And I see, like, in the people you may know or whatever on LinkedIn, I see this Versace design director. And I propose an opportunity.
Over LinkedIn.
Over LinkedIn.
Okay.
Right? I'm like, and I'll explain the toilet part because that has significance. So I'm like, listen, like, the sneaker industry is a multi-billion-dollar business. Traditionally, that consumer has always gone for like your Nike, Reebok, Adidas. Within the last 5 years, because of the education of, you know, collaborations like Raf, Adidas, Comme des Garçons, Nike, now this consumer is aware of the fact that fashion houses can make sneakers and make good sneakers. So it's an opportunity for you guys. You have so much heritage, such strong DNA, so much history that, you know, you need to participate. And I didn't think that I would hear back. This is me literally fishing, you know?
Yeah.
And then like 3 days later, I get a email back from, and
They emailed you back.
they emailed me.
Okay.
And they loved my ideas, and they were like, we want you to come out to Milan and tell them more. And so, you know, I'm like a little confused. I didn't see it as a job opportunity. I was like, I guess they just want to speak to me. So
Or consult.
or something, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go out there with a page or two of trend. You know, what Kevin did, come through with the wood briefcase, tell him what I think is cool, right? And so strangely, like the week leading up, maybe 2 weeks past, the week leading up, I had a few influential conversations, right? So the first one was like to do some sample design work. Don't assume they know you can design. Put some free work in there, essentially. And I was a little confused by that, but
Like design some
concepts,
spec work.
like
Okay.
Versace concepts, that this is what I think we could do, right?
Okay.
And then I spoke to someone else who was the mom of my friend Itai. He makes like lighters and accessories out of like luxury fabrics. And I think she's like an OG. She's an OG in fashion as well. And she basically spoke to me and was like, you need to go to the store, see what's selling, you know, show them that you've done your research.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I was also reminded that there aren't too many people that look like me in the high fashion space, and then I need to take it seriously.
Get a
and,
haircut.
you know, but we'll take it seriously, and I could be paving the way. You know what I mean? Like,
So there's a lot of responsibility.
a lot of responsibility. So with all those conversations I had, what was going to be a 2-page presentation turned into a 40-page presentation. And
Wow.
I go out to Milan, present to Donatella. We hit it off right away. Throughout the presentation, she starts bringing in people, I guess, because she liked it. And then when I was done, she just hired me on the spot. She was like, I love you. I want you. Like, go talk to HR, essentially. And then what was even crazier was that she was like, what will the setup be? Do you want to move here? Do you want to consult? Like, they were very flexible about what the setup was. So then I kind of took like, you know, a shot in the dark, and I was like, can I have my own office in LA? And then I'll travel here once a month for meetings, approvals, stuff like that. And they were like, sure.
That happened on the same trip.
The same trip. This happened in the same hour. Yeah.
Oh my
like,
God.
So
How do you think it would have went down if you just went in with the 2-pager?
I don't know. I mean, I will say, going back to Kanye, I really do think that, like, you know, my time with Kanye affected like my value, kind of. You know, not many people work with Kanye, and then also not many people bring product to fruition.
Right.
So,
And there's also, I think, the confidence factor. Like, after Kanye, even Donatella is like, I can handle this.
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that helped a lot.
Right.
So if I came through with the 2 pages, I think maybe the conversation would have been like, so maybe
Let's think about it. Like,
or like, what does design look like? Now, like, can you show us what? And then it
it would have gotten there. Yeah.
It would have made it take a little bit longer, but I think that I really hit him over the head with like everything from like
Wow.
sales perspective to just like design ethos and all of that. And again, just going back to like loving sneakers, it wasn't even something that I had to do too much research on, because it's like I breathe this, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's in
yeah.
my blood.
Did you show the chain reaction?
No.
Dang, that is how you do it. Locked it in right there in that moment. If there's one thing to take away from hearing about this meeting, it's to take this shit seriously. If that's not a key point, I don't know what is. Any opportunity that's in front of you, any meeting, phone call, invitation, or interview, take it seriously because that shows how much you really want it. When you're in these meetings and interviews, your perspective, opinion, and work is all that you have to sell yourself. This is essentially what they're looking for. What new, fresh perspective can you bring to the table? What is your opinion on our brand, and how can you add value to me? From sales, brand trajectory, concepts, and design, Salehe came ready. If we want to impress somebody, understand that you need to come with this level of preparation and thoughtfulness. Think about the next time you meet someone who could make a difference in your life. And this could be business or personal, to be honest. Ask yourself if you're bringing with you the bare minimum, or maybe what's good enough, or are you coming with what Salehe brought, showing that you are willing to go above and beyond and do whatever it takes.
Basically, I get the job. They allow the whole remote working setup.
Yep.
And then it's like time to get to work. And so I know I'm essentially starting from scratch, right? So I realize that I need to create a sneaker that is going to get the attention of the sneaker market, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
So I kind of like broke down just like Versace as a brand visually, right? So I'm like, there's the Medusa, there's the Greca, which is that kind of, you know,
the bracket
grid thing. And then there's like chains. So obviously the Medusa, there's not much you can do with that from a functional standpoint. And then the Greca is somewhat rigid. So at the time, I didn't think I should work with that either. But then I was looking at the chain and I was like, this is a really interesting shape because it's interlocking and it's like, it's somewhat organic looking. So I started looking at a lot of chains. And then I saw the Cuban link chain and I saw that it was flat. And I was like, wow, like that could potentially be functional, right? So I started just doing some sketches, playing with some clay. And then I created like a design and I made an orthographic, gave it to my 3D guy, who made a 3D model, got it printed in 3D. And then for my first trip to Milan, I like went out there with the idea. So instead of having to like refer to a piece of paper saying like, if you could imagine, just handed it to her, didn't say anything. And she loved it.
Wow.
So then
no pushback,
none. But again, and this is speculation, but I do think that like where I was coming from kind of helped the perception. You know, I'm coming from Yeezy footwear. Like, I guess Yeezy is like, you know, from a sneaker standpoint.
But the chain reaction outsole is in and of itself genius.
Thank you. It's
not often you could create like a new outsole. You think about like outsole design. There's like 10 in all of history that are signatures, and you've created one of them now.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I think that was kind of the opportunity is that, you know, rarely in footwear can you kind of create something like new.
Yeah.
And it was strange because I created it, and then, you know, you stare at something long enough, you're not really sure.
Totally. Like, you feel like you're drinking your own Kool-Aid
exactly,
at this point.
You know, so then we molded the real outsole, and I saw the outsole, and I was like, oh my God, this is dope. Like, I just knew it. So then I completely redesigned the upper. Because I was like, this can be so much more than what I thought it was going to be. So I like went back to the drawing board. And then I was like, I thought I had a really strong product, but I was like, I kind of needed to ensure it, going back to knowing the ingredients of how you do it. Yeah. And I was like, I need to seed this. I need to like do a gifting. Right. To like get it on those influential people. So, you know, at the time, through my time at Yeezy, I maybe knew like one or two celebrities, right? But through just like degrees of separation, calling people, DMing, like cold DMing people, for like a good 3 months straight, I seeded about 100 people. Yeah.
So you were like the head of marketing of the sneaker.
I don't want to say that because the head of marketing does amazing work.
Right. But you were doing stuff beyond your job as the designer.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I basically got approval to like seed 100 pairs, and I just put together a list of like pretty much everyone that you would imagine would be getting sneakers, you know, the usual suspects. Right. You were on that list, right? Yeah. And then I get put in touch with 2 Chainz. And I remember I like had a call with him. It was like 2 a.m. I was in Milan. I don't know where he was. And like his manager puts him on the phone, tech. Like we start talking and I'm like, bro, I got this shoe. It really aligns with your brand. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, I got to have you sign an NDA. He signs the NDA. He sees the shoe and he's like, oh shit, it's made of 2 Chainz. Right? So then immediately he's just like really interested in getting involved. Yeah. And then, you know, we just really hit it off. You know, we have a lot of similarities. And I personally don't think that the relationship would have worked the same if I was like some older guy in a suit, right? Like I think the fact that he saw a level of transparency, he saw a level of just me, being genuine.
Yeah.
It worked, right? So for the first,
and that was just lighter fluid on an already dope.
Exactly.
thing.
So it's kind of a perfect storm of like sound product, amazing brand. There was definitely a little bit of timing, and then association, right? So it was kind of all those things that brought it together. So this is, mind you, like a month and a half into me having the job, and then the show, like the first show happened maybe a few weeks after that, right? So
Wait, it only took a month and a half from you getting the job to
I designed
shoes?
I designed the chain reaction in like 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they were able to make a sample that fast?
Yeah, like it happened super fast. But I also think that I was able to streamline it a little bit just from like experience and industrial, like functional industrial design knowledge and that kind of stuff. So it was super, super quick. So then the show was maybe 2 months in. It was FW18 show. And brought 2 Chainz to Milan with me. Like brought him to the show, completely surreal. We hop out of the car, cameras everywhere. Like, I thanked him so much, to this day that meant so much to me. Like not only that for the fact that he supported me, but for the fact that he came to Milan, flicked it up with me and Donatella, like all of that. Like there are moments in life you'll never ever forget. And that was 100% one of them, right? That was history.
And what did that do for the business of sneakers as a category in Versace?
Well, I would say prior, they made sneakers, but I don't think it was necessarily as much of a priority for the brand because there weren't that many styles. So that's just like speculation. That may not be the case. But I really just saw an opportunity. You know what I mean? I saw, some of the waves that were being created by other fashion houses and the sneakers they made, and I was like, you guys can, participate in this. It's like an open market, and you have so many loyal, consumers already. Like now you just need to make a strong product that'll work. And then furthermore, you can pull in so many more like consumers because there's all these kids out here that are not even privy to the brand just because they're young and they don't know. They don't know,
Right.
So let's do some educating. Let's scream from the mountaintops that we make sneakers, and let's up the momentum.
And now it's a big part of the business?
It's a huge part of the business. And it's growing. And so the first year that I was there, I did strictly sneakers by myself. And now I have an intern, and I also do the formal men's footwear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they expanded your responsibilities
After the first year, yeah, because I guess maybe sneakers did so well. Yeah.
Wow. When you sent that anonymous letter out on LinkedIn, did you...
Should I explain the toilet part? I never got to explain that.
Yeah, why is that important?
So that's really fascinating to me because it's kind of like the butterfly effect. You know what that is?
Yes.
So it's kind of crazy to me that I ate a meal that made me go to the bathroom at that specific moment. And if it happened at maybe an hour earlier, an hour later, the LinkedIn algorithm would have been different. And Dean, who was the person that I messaged, may not have been on LinkedIn. And
Right.
and just because of that meal, I believe it kind of changed my life.
Okay.
Right? So
I can see that,
So yeah. So or maybe I just would have been in a different headspace, and maybe I didn't want to send him a message.
Totally. I think it's more that.
Sure.
I honestly think that sometimes when I write texts or emails out, like the universe is saying, do it now, Jeff, right? And you felt that, obviously. Most people probably would have been like, let me get off the toilet and sit at my desk and actually draft a proper message. But the universe and your doo-doo was like, do this now.
Yeah, kind of.
Right? And so this was my next question, but like, did you send out the same message to like every other fashion house?
That's the crazy thing is no. And obviously that sounds like the safe political answer, but no, I did not. And again, like this wasn't new to me because remember like United Nude, I did the exact same thing. I reached out, I was like, yo, I like your brand, like what's up, right?
Yeah.
So that was essentially this on a bigger scale. So the answer is no, but at the same time, it wasn't something that was, alien to me at all. I really think like any like young creatives out there listening, like it's not to be taken advantage of because so many of you actually take advantage of it in a horrible way. But like the fact that we have access to all of these people, like you can really use it to your advantage for like information or, a lot of you, again, I repeat, take advantage of it, but can be done with tact.
It's like the door is there, but you still have to have some sort of mannerisms in the way you knock and approach that door, you know? But I do think, there's a lot of value in the fact that you pinpointed the opportunity and the white space at Versace. You didn't hit XYZ brand, probably because you subconsciously knew the opportunity wasn't as great. And I think the power of what you bring to the table is not only that, like, yo, you have an opportunity to do this, I can bring you a great design, but you actually cashed in on it. So the guy who's wearing the suit in this finance department at Versace is equally happy with you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, numbers don't lie.
That's rare. Yeah.
Numbers don't lie. And then, again, I don't eat chicken, and I completely disagree with this whole Popeyes phenomenon, but I'm going to use it as my analogy. It's like Popeyes already made great chicken, but someone came in and was like, sandwiches, right? So like I think I more or less did that. You know, they were already doing amazing, you know, work and amazing design, but I just came in and I was like, sneakers.
Right.
And then they were like, all right, go. And
Yeah,
they let me, and that was, and that's actually, there's something to be said for that, is that they let me go. Because, you know, I talk about how I wanted to work at a Nike my entire life.
Yeah.
But a Nike would have been a lot of gatekeepers. And a lot of people that I had to convince.
Wouldn't have let you just go for yourself.
Exactly. And Donatella is amazing because she trusts me and she supports me and she ultimately lets me go.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Everyone, we have the internet, so there should be no excuse to not try and reach out to people. Sure, 100 cold emails, messages, and DMs may only bring you back maybe 10 responses. But it's the effort that you put through those that gets you the 10 back. No effort, no results. And whether it be the butterfly effect or some predestined timing, Salehe wouldn't have heard back from Versace if he didn't actually send that message. It's crazy to think that his time at the brand all started by a LinkedIn message on a toilet. But that's just the amazing realization of the opportunities from today's online world. Even with all his design talent, it seems Salehe's superpower is actually his ability to take it upon himself to land where he wants. From the innovation team at Haan to Yeezy to Versace, these were concerted efforts to make sure that he's in the best possible place for where he needs to be at that time. That's what's important to realize. He didn't sit back and wait for things to happen. Salehe didn't rely on traditional routes of applying just to get the hope that he might get a callback. Maybe it meant leaving his sketchbook open on a strategic place at the corner of the table. Whatever means necessary, he goes direct and comes with a unique perspective on what he wants to get out into the world. If you want someone to take the time to respond to you with something of value, you have to offer that value first. Be purposeful with what you want to say, and remember, take this shit seriously. And conversely, you were mentioning how when you were at Haan in the innovation team, which is so dope, but like 2 out of 10 things you design would actually make it to market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Here, you actually get to see your favorite musicians fucking wearing it on stage.
And that in itself is crazy. I mean, I remember it maybe been 5 or 6 months, and I just got in a few pairs of the Chain Reaction to the Migos stylist, Zoe, and I wasn't sure if she was going to get it to them or when they were going to wear it. And I was watching, was it like NBA All-Star? And they came out during halftime, all wearing them. Actually, no, Takeoff wasn't wearing them because his size was wrong. But Offset and Quavo were, and like that was the most surreal. Like it was, I probably said surreal like 20 times in this interview, but that's how things have been lately, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it.
Right.
I couldn't believe it, and that was another one of those just unforgettable moments. Yeah.
Do you feel currently, is the success a double-edged sword? Where are you now, everywhere you go, the Chain Reaction guy?
Well, I have a funny story for you before I answer that. So, Allen Iverson reaches out to me, right? And it's strange. I've had some just people I would never expect to reach out to show love or maybe want a pair of shoes. Allen Iverson reaches out to me, says he read an interview, really proud of me.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Can he get
to
some
me.
shoes, right?
That's
Insane, right?
Me. Allen Iverson right? read an article about you,
right?
And then like what, slid into your DMs?
Slid in my DMs. I'm sorry, Allen. I'm not trying to blow up your spot. But anyway, so we just had like a little back and forth. You know, I was like, told him I was a huge fan of him. I sent him some shoes, and then the relationship became like maybe every 2 months we would just check in. What's up? How are you? That looks dope. Whatever, right? And then November comes around and we see that we're both going to be at Complex Con. So I hit him. I was like, bro, you're going to be at Complex Con. We're going to meet. This is going to be dope. He's like, oh man, I'm excited. Blah blah blah. Right. And then I even asked him if I could lay on the ground and he could step over me, we could take a picture.
Yes.
So anyway, Complex Con rolls around. I'm walking around. I see a crowd of people like kind of moving, and I'm like looking. I was like, oh, there goes Iverson, right? So I walk over, tap him on the back. He turns around, and I kind of like make a smile. I was like, hey, and he just like turned right back around, right? So then I'm like, shit, he doesn't recognize me or what is going on, right? So then I tap him again, and I go, hey, it's me, the chain reaction guy. And that's something I would never say in a million years, but
you needed that bullet.
I needed that like recognizable thing, and then he still like turned around or whatever.
What?
So then I messaged him like a few hours later. I was like, bro, that was me. And he was like, yeah, man, things were hectic. I don't know what happened. I don't know. We've since talked. Like, I don't know if I was sunned or he made a mistake. But going back to being the chain reaction guy, I mean, shit, I'm happy to be the chain reaction guy. Before I was the Payless guy, you know what I mean? So like, I'm happy to be that, and if anything, more than the chain reaction guy, I just want to be seen as like the Versace sneakers guy and the guy that kind of like came in and shook some things up.
Yeah. But let's now segue to the future, because you've now like your name has almost become, dare I say, like a brand. It's becoming a household name. You yourself have a fan base and a following as well. So have you given sights on like what the future beholds for you yourself?
I just kind of want to continue to be challenged. I mean, like, I was lucky enough to major in something that made me pretty versatile as a designer. So I want to continue to be challenged, and I want to continue to create. I've been in situations where a whole year will pass and I'll make like one or two things, and now I'm just like, people constantly ask me how many shoes I've made at Versace, and I really have no idea, but it's because I'm working, like I'm not counting, so like it's a lot though. Yeah. And so I just want to continue to be happy. It's like I'm very lucky to do my passion for a living, and if you love what you do, it's not a job. So the fact that for me work can happen on an airplane or on my couch or anywhere, right? Like it's great, and I'm just really enjoying it. So, moving forward, I just want to keep getting my ideas out there, because there was a time where I was like really geeked off of seeing people wear my shoes, but now I'm really just geeked off of like the amount of product I'm getting to create and how successful it's doing, and the fact that people seem to be resonating with not only my work but me. And recently I was at Complex Con and just experiencing people coming up to me and showing love or telling me how important it is for someone that looks like me to be in my space. And they're all things I realize, but it's also like a reminder at the same time. I'm like, damn, like this is bigger than me. Like I need to like lead by example and represent, the multiple groups I'm a part of in the best way possible.
Yeah. I mean, what is your perspective on that, on like race and where we're at in society today, where like there's definitely cross-pollination happening and a lot of doors are getting kicked down in multiple avenues. Like, do you see yourself as one of those door busters?
Oh man, for sure. I mean, my entire life, I think, and I kind of almost get off on it, is just like constantly breaking stereotypes, right? From whether it's like my education level or how I speak or like where I've been in the world. Like I like to surprise people. I've spoken to people, and I can just tell by the look on their face that they're surprised, right? So, I really think it's important to lead by example. And, I realize that some people I meet when I travel, they may have never even seen a black person before. Like I've gone to Hong Kong and I've had people touch my face. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's really
not in a racist way, but just in like
curiosity. Curiosity.
Yeah.
If I saw a purple person, I'd touch his face, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, and I definitely kind of always have that on my mind in a sense.
But it's a fine line, because if you go too aggressive about it, then you start to scare people off. Like you have to sort of understand your place, but also not be combative about it.
Well, so it's been my life experience, right? Like I went to private school. I grew up in Tribeca, right? So like my entire life, I've been the true minority. I've frequently had to, like almost act as a informative tool of like, oh, we can be this or we can be that, and I enjoy it. Like I really like it, and I realize I'm in a space where there aren't many people that look like me many black people. So it's a job, it's an opportunity that I take on. I have no problem taking on at all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see, like, okay, so you've got Virgil, yourself, you've got Kirby, right? And I asked Tremaine a very similar question when I interviewed him. Right now in society, is there a positive momentum happening where in a few years this won't be, newsworthy that you're hiring a black person in a top level? Or are we being patronized right now? Is it just a checkbox or is it actually a movement?
I really do think it's a movement because similar to, the jobs, it's about stepping stones, right? So I don't think I would exist if Virgil didn't exist. I personally feel like, I was hired because they might have looked adjacently to LV and been like, oh, wow, and that could be completely wrong. Again, speculation, but I really think that,
there's something there. I think there's something there too.
Yeah, for sure. It's leading by example and seeing like, oh, it's working over there. Let's try this out. I don't think my hiring was like based on like strictly race, but I think, maybe it plays a role. I don't want to say maybe. It absolutely plays a role. Yeah.
A positive role or a challenging role?
Both. I think both.
It's just a role. It's like a factor. It was a factor.
The same way that age or sexuality plays a role. Like
Right. Yeah. I also interviewed Samuel Ross from Nicole Wall, and he said he came from the real East End of London where there was no access. I remember he told me he was selling bootleg Nikes on his front lawn at one point, and then to be able to get through to now the quote unquote luxury world. He said he's surprised at how many walls there are, constantly. You think you've made it, only to then there's another wall.
Yeah.
Right? Do you still feel like there's walls that you have to overcome on an everyday basis?
I don't know. These days, I really don't feel too many obstacles.
Good.
I report to Donatella.
Yeah.
She is amazing. She supports me. And then also, now that I have a little bit of proof of concept with some successful footwear, they do allow me to dance. And so really, the sky's the limit right now.
Yeah.
It really feels that way.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm almost wired to think that things are going so good right now, I'm almost waiting for the bad to happen. I've actually been seeing a lot of 13s recently, and I thought that was bad. But then I looked it up, and apparently seeing 13s consistently is a good thing, right? So I think things are looking good, I think.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we'll see.
And we were talking before about the ratio of happiness and fulfillment at your job versus finance, and how you could never get them to align. Are you aligned right now?
I couldn't be more aligned, man. Linear,
I'm aligned like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm linear.
Yeah,
but were you when you were at Yeezy? Was it good? Was that the most you ever got paid when you were at Yeezy at that time, or did you take a pay cut from that too?
I think I took a pay cut for that as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Or maybe I stayed around the same. Yeezy was after
Greats.
Right? So, no, Yeezy was a little bit more, but I don't think it was six figures. So I think for the next two jobs, I don't think it was six figures.
Okay.
But again, it wasn't about that. If Kanye,
I know.
If Kanye was like, I got $20 for you, what's good? I would have been like, let's work.
You need a 5 back?
Exactly. You need change.
I got change.
Exactly.
But I want to go back to the Versace talk because you got the job offered to you right there on the spot.
Yes.
Does that mean you had to negotiate your salary right there on the spot too?
No, because that was like an HR conversation.
That could happen. You had time to negotiate that.
Like maybe that was like a week or two after. So yeah, and then again, wasn't equipped to have that conversation, but it worked out for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now you're in a really good place,
amazing
creatively
space.
And financially, which
I couldn't be.
That's
happier.
kind of like the definition of success, isn't it?
Yeah, man, and I'm happy, and I'm also getting to travel, and it's all going well. Because it's strange, at all my past jobs, and I've communicated this with a few people, and they've agreed, is that I always had this lingering feeling in the back of my head that I could get fired. And when you have that feeling in your head, it's just kind of it's like having that devil on your shoulder. It just doesn't feel right. So at this job, I feel safe and I feel successful and I feel inspired and these are the things that should really exist at all jobs. But I feel that now, and so to be able to breathe and feel safe, there's nothing that compares to that. Anyone listening to this right now and having that feeling of not knowing if you're gonna get that next check or not sure if you were performing well enough in your that's a very real fear.
Yeah.
And to not have that now, I feel kind of free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what's coming for 2020 for you?
So what's coming for 2020? My employer has been nice enough to let me execute 2 personal collaborations. So I'm going to be collaborating with New Balance. I won't say the release. And then I'm also going to be collaborating with so 2 drastically different companies.
Yeah.
And then we all know New Balance. And I think they're just great opportunities for me to kind of create and just, you know, show the consumer what my pen looks like as an individual with no rules.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you work under a brand or for anyone else, you have to abide by some. And I'm really excited to kind of just get off some projects exactly how I want them to be, you know, and that's like really exciting. Some apparel as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just new for me, man. You know, I'm like just going back to the versatility. Like this is something I really think I can do well, and I'm really excited to show the audience what I can.
It's
what
really
I can do.
dope that your employer is allowing you to go outside and, you know, do your personal projects.
And kind of unheard of. It exists in some
is.
places, but I think, you know, they're clearly willing to try new things because they were okay with the work setup, right? So
yeah. You guys dropped the shoe on GOAT, if I'm not mistaken, right? Did you do a release on GOAT?
We did do a release on GOAT. I don't know if it was I think we released it internally and then we did something on GOAT. But I think that was more so represented how we were just trying to
Experiment, right?
Experiment,
Yeah.
like, you know, and just try new things to inject new momentum. One of the things that I executed pretty early into my stint there was the Kith collaboration. Ronnie was a friend, and I thought to myself, you know, if one of my main goals is to increase the sneaker business and get a bunch of new young eyes on the sneaker brand, and more importantly the brand, Kith makes a lot of sense.
Oh,
right?
so the Versace Kith apparel collaboration also was helped by you.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I had the relationship with Ronnie, and I was given a little bit of freedom to you know, reach out and think about how we could, you know, do some just interesting projects. So we did the Kith collaboration. That was a bunch of clothing. We did some sneakers. Then we collaborated with Pogi. So I flew to Japan. We did a United Arrows and Sons collaboration. We collaborated with Concepts on the palm print chain reaction that was pretty big. And these were just all things as a way to both educate this new younger sneaker consumer about the brand, about the sneaker business, and just kind of get that organic spreading of the word. Yeah. You know? And it worked because like now the sneaker business is one of the top businesses in the company, and you know, people are really curious as to what we're going to come with next. Yeah.
I mean, you've been through so much now, you know, so many trials and tribulations. Like, what is the one piece of advice that you would give that, you know, even to yourself, that like you've learned over the past few years that you always like sort of chant to yourself that, man, if it wasn't for this about me, like I wouldn't be where I am today? What is that insight, that nugget?
To just kind of like maybe keep going, because there's sometimes there were just times where I just, you know, would deal with, you know, people that weren't necessarily trying to see me succeed, or, you know, the jobs that I didn't like, or shitty bosses. You know, I've had a couple of those. You know who you are if you're listening, right? And
movement forward is just key, right?
Movement forward is key, you know, because like I just kind of like look back on this and like, you know, everything was a stepping stone, and it really like, you know, my startup small business time at Greats gave me something, and then dealing with, you know, such a left company like Yeezy, you know, gave me something else, and having a boss like Kanye gave me something else. And it's really like you almost like need those learned experiences to, you know, because then you're gonna encounter one of them, and if you haven't dealt with it, then you may crumble, right? So I feel like I've been lucky enough to be at a giant corporation, a small startup, a Yeezy, and now like I'm kind of prepared for anything, or at least so I think so far. And I'm just excited about what's to come.
And then the flip side of that question is, now that you're becoming a veteran in your industry and you're seeing a lot of experience, but you're also now seeing, you know, you mentioned that you've been applying the Nike since you were 12 years old. You're probably seeing a lot of young kids hitting you up because you're now essentially the gatekeeper.
Every day.
Yeah. And so what do you see as one of the biggest mistakes that young people make when they hit you up and try to really like get access? What is a mistake that people make now?
Well, the number one is that they just want the answer. Like they really think I'm gonna say like, I got like 2 magic jelly beans for you, drink this, and like it's gonna happen. And like that's not the case. And then the other one is just to like, you gotta just like start, right? Like it's unfortunate that we now have these phones in our hands that are consuming so much of our time. And me and you, like we're busy like creatives. We're working, and you probably still have the phone in your hand a decent amount. Like whenever you have the time,
Right.
like you know what
Imagine
I mean?
you weren't busy. You
right?
just
Imagine like you don't even have a job. Imagine how and then you get into comparison and comparing someone else's experience like with yours or how someone else's life looks to yours. And
yeah.
I would just say start. And I realize people are always, do you need to go to school? And like, just like dead all those questions and just like begin, and then like maybe create something horrible and then learn from that. Maybe take a picture of it, put it on the internet, see what people think. Maybe you get feedback. Like it's the questions I get sometimes kind of baffle me, because it's like we have the internet in front of us. Like when I was coming up, like to even just like see an interview of like a tinker or something was like so rare.
Yeah.
And like now, like it's all there. And so I would just say like,
you're not doing the research properly.
Yeah,
like
do the research. And because I used to, when I would ask, older designers when I was young, like what to do, they'd say, go to the library. And I'd be like, nah, like I'm not going. But you guys can do it like in the comfort of your home, like on a couch.
On the toilet.
Yeah, on the toilet, right? So I would just say that.
So how does someone, I want to know this, like if I slide into your DMs, what is the proper way where I'll actually get a response from you? Like, what is it? Is it being professional? Is it being considerate? Is it showing, like, I hate it when kids send like fucking 15 screenshots of their phone, like of their work.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I would just say,
because you're like the master of this shit
of reaching out. Yeah, well, so I would just say, show value or like be respectful, right? Like, or be unique.
Both. Yeah.
Unique, value, special. Respect.
Yes.
Sorry. I remember, because it wasn't Mike Sherman that like found out the way you got home from work and then put up his work on the genius. Like, and that's not what I'm saying at all to anyone. Do not do that.
That did get the interview though. He did get the interview.
Yeah, he got the interview, and I'm not saying do that, but just like that was unique. And then this kid approached me because I actually want to shout this kid out because he was really really like interesting dude. His name was Toby. Yeah, Toby. This kid Toby came up to me at Complex Con, and he has this group called the Crenshaw Skate Club, and he just came up to me super respectful. He just said he just wanted like knowledge basically, and he's 16 years old, and he has like this clique, and I think they said they were doing something with Adidas, and I was like, bro, like any way that I can be a resource or like help you or educate you or anything you need. Like he was almost more like stoic than I was. I was all moving around trying to help him, and he was just standing there. I was like, wow, like this guy's special. So. Toby, if you're hearing this, you got to pull up to the office still. But it was actually funny. I was trying to have him come to the office, and I was like, "Yo, do you want to come Monday through Friday? When do you want to come?" And he was like, "Oh, can you do it on the weekend?" I was like, "What do you mean the weekend, man? I'm gonna be doing other things." And he was like, "Oh, well, I'm a junior in high school, so like," and I was like, "Oh, wow, like I don't speak to anyone your age. I forgot." Right. So yeah, just be unique. Yeah. Be respectful or show value, because the amount of times I just get, yo, I want to work for you, and that's it.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What's your name? Hello, my name. Like it's like crazy. It's crazy. So I think it's simple. It's really simple.
Good. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Heavy hitters, suckers.
Hey, thanks for listening to this super inspiring episode with the very talented Salehe Bembury. As always, you can find out more about the show and listen to other episodes at hypebeast.com/radio. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I personally use Anchor FM. We are now at almost 500 reviews and a 4.9 rating on Apple Podcasts. Keep shouting us out and telling us what you think of the show. I truly, truly appreciate it. Also, do me a solid and just tell one friend about this episode. Someone you know whose dream it is to work in the footwear industry. I have a feeling they're going to thank you for it. We occasionally answer listener questions on the show, so if you have a question, shoot it over to me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Staple. The Business of Hype is created in collaboration with Bright Young Things. You can check out their work at byt.nyc. Our director is Daniel Navetta. Our audio engineer is David Rogers-Berry. Our audio interludes are composed by Gabe Darling. Our associate producers are Sydney Pakumpra and Christina Hong. This episode was recorded on location at the Staple headquarters in New York City. I'm Jeff Staple, and you've been listening to The Business of Hype on HYPEBEAST Radio.